which we are going to go over today. On the worksheet that I've handed out, we have different definitions we're going to go over on the board so that we can all be clear as to what scale is and how it can be used with maps and buildings, and we're going to discover how far, if you're going to use Google Maps on the web, how many feet equal inches, so you can approximate your time, how long it's going to take you to walk somewhere, stuff like that. So first, we are going to go over some vocabulary words. On your worksheet, the first word that you should have on there is greatest common factor, or GCF. And a greatest common factor is used in a fraction. So if we have a fraction of 10 over 55, the greatest common factor is a number that will go into both numbers, the denominator and the numerator, equally. So for this fraction, a number that can go both into 10 and 55, an easy one to start with is 5. 5 can go into 10 2 times, and 5 can go into 55 11 times. So again, the greatest common factor is the largest number that will divide equally into both the numerator and the denominator. Okay, so the greatest common factor again of the fraction 10 and 55 is the number 5. It can go into both 10 and 55 evenly, giving us 2 over 11. So the first term on your worksheet, greatest common factor, is the largest number that will divide equally into both the numerator and the denominator. The second vocabulary term on your worksheet is going to be the numerator, which I was going over. The numerator is going to be the top number in your fraction. So if we have, again, the fraction 10 over 55, the numerator is going to be the 10. Remember that the top number is the numerator. So top number in the fraction is the numerator. The next word we're going to go over is denominator, which we'll use the same example of 10 over 55. The denominator is the bottom number. So you have the numerator, which is the top number, the denominator, which is the bottom number. And this will be for all fractions. The next word on our list is going to be ratio, which we will use a fraction to express. And a ratio is a way to compare two different objects. So if we have, for example, a class of 6 boys and 4 girls, the ratio can describe how many boys there are to how many girls. So our ratio would be 6 boys to 4 girls. And a ratio can be expressed in 3 different ways. We have the 6-to-4 way, which is a way to describe it in language using words. We also have the fractional way to describe a ratio, which will be 6 boys to 4 girls. And you can also find the greatest common factor of that if you like, which would equal, it could be a ratio of 6 to 4, or in lowest terms, 3 to 2. Because 2 will go into 6 3 times, and 2 will go into 4 2 times. So you have a ratio of 3 to 2 in fractional form, as well as the words of 6 to 4, and we also have another way to do it, which is called Audits Notation. In this case, 6 to 4, we will use a colon to separate the two. So if we have 6 to 4, another way to write it will be 6 colon 4. Just like the fraction, 6 to 4, just like the words, 6 to 4. In odds notation, we will be 6 to 4. An easier way, 6 to 4, whatever way is easiest for you to write is acceptable. They're all equal when you're writing them down. So again, a ratio is a comparison of two objects. Like a class that has 6 boys and 4 girls, we would write as 6 to 4, or 6 colon 4, or 6 over 4 in a fractional form. So 3 different ways to write it. They're all going to be the same, and whatever's easiest for you to remember at this time is good. Okay, now what we're going to do today is talk about scale, which if you have ever seen a map, they will have a legend on it that identifies how many inches, usually inches, sometimes it can be other forms of measurement. It could be for every 1 inch. For every 1 inch you measure on the map, you will get 1 mile. Which in ratio terms would equal 1 to 1, a 1-to-1 ratio. And a 1-to-1 ratio is pretty easy to figure out, which we will go over later. But we will see that for every 1 inch you measure, you are in real measurement going 1 mile. So if we were to walk from here to the supermarket down the street, if we were to walk, if on the map we measured 5 inches, for every inch there's 1 mile. So if there were 5 inches, you'd multiply 1 by 5, and you'd get 5 miles. So for every inch you'd get 1 mile. If there were 5 inches, you'd get 5 miles. If it was 4 inches to the supermarket, you would get 4 miles. And if it was 2 inches to the supermarket, you would get 2 miles. If there's a 1-to-1 ratio. But as we'll go over, it'll change depending on the measurement. And so for scale, the definition to write down on your worksheet is the relationship between the actual size of a place and its size shown on a map. Which you can write down, you can copy exactly what I'm writing here. This will be what is expected of you to remember for any tests or quizzes. So remember, it is the relationship between the actual size of an object and its size on a map for today's discussion. So if we have a park that is 10 miles wide and on a map it is 10 inches wide, you can discover by the methods we're going to use today that it's going to be 1 inch per 1 mile, and in that way you can measure on a map you can measure a 4-inch distance and realize that it's going to be 4 miles, not 4 inches. Okay, so now we are going to start to actually put this into motion, and if you want to use at home, if you've ever used the website maps.google.com, which is on the bottom of your worksheet, You can actually discover directions to different places like the skate park or McDonald's or Albertsons or any place you want from your house. Today we're going to be using the school, Los Primeros, as our starting point. So where you are today is where we are going to begin to make a directional map. So on the bottom of your worksheet, as you can see, there is a link to maps.google.com, which is a great place to go for directions. And you can use the map for any notes that you have to take today and keep those with you for the test. So, here is our map that I downloaded from Google Maps, and our starting point A is Los Primeros, the school. So Google Maps tells us to go down the street. We're going to end up at McDonald's. Basically, we're going to walk from here to McDonald's, and we want to see what's the relationship between the map that I have here and actual miles to time out our walk. So we have in the lower right-hand corner, we have the scale, which is hard to read here, but it's 200 feet, and we use this big, the projected screen as our map. We have 200 feet for every 4 inches. So if we're going to write that in ratio terms, remember we're comparing two distances. So if we have a 4-inch measurement on our map, our Google Maps is telling us that for every 4 inches, it equals 200 feet. So for every 4 inches, we have 200 feet. Or, in fractional terms, 4 over 200. In Audits Notation, 4 to 200. And when we use our words to describe it, we can say 4 to 200. A simpler way to do it, if you would like to get the greatest common factor, again, the number that goes into both the numerator and the denominator equally, we can make it a little easier on ourselves. If we get 4 to 200, we can divide, we want to make 1 over something. So for every 1 inch, we will get so many feet. So in this case, 4 goes into 200 50 times. So when we divide 200 by 4, we get 50, which in this case equals, for every 1 inch, you get 50 feet. So, let's go back over that one more time. For our purposes, the scale of this map is 1 inch to 50 feet. So make sure you remember that. 1 inch equals 50 feet of actual distance between Los Primeros and McDonald's B up on the projector here. So, if you're going to Google Maps, it'll probably tell you the exact feet, but for this exercise, we're not going to do it that way. You can do it yourselves. So, let's measure out how many inches it is from the school to McDonald's. And then we'll figure out how many feet it is so you can estimate how long it's going to take you to walk there. Alright, so looks like we got 15 and 19 plus 8, which is 27, plus 5, which is 32, plus 4, which is 36, plus 4, which is 40, plus 15, which is 55, plus 14, which is 69 inches, and finally, when you come up around the bend, you have another 15, which is 84 total inches. So the distance in our printed out map on the projector between Los Primeros and McDonald's is 84 inches. So 84 inches from Los Primeros to McDonald's on our map, And now we want to convert that into feet. And because of our scale, we have a 1 inch to every 50 feet scale. So what we can do to figure out how many feet 84 inches is, using our scale ratio, we will multiply 84 times 50. So, we will do that on the board, right here. 84 times 50. Multiply the 0 all the way through. Add the 0 down here. We got 5 times 4, which is 20. 5 times 8 is 40. Plus the 2 is 42. So we have a grand total of 4,200 feet. So the distance between, according to our scale, 1 to 50, our measurement was 84 inches. And if you multiply 84 times 50, we're going to get 4,200 feet between Los Primeros and McDonald's. So another way to do it, in case that one isn't working out for you, is you can use the scale that we have down in the lower left here, which is for every 4 inches it's 200 feet, right here. You can mark on your ruler the 4-inch mark, and every 4 inches you go, you can add another 200 feet to your list. So for the first 400, we'll go 200 feet. And then we'll go another 4, and we'll add 200 feet. We'll go another 4, we'll go 200 feet. Which kind of gets a little cumbersome, so that'll take a lot of time. Another way to do it is you can take your total of 84 inches, divide that by the scale of 4, which is going to be 21, and you have gone 21 4-inch spaces on this map. So instead of writing this 200 feet down 21 times, you can multiply 200 feet by 21, and you'll get your answer 4,200. Okay. So now can anyone tell me why are these maps so small? Well, they are small because they are trying to tell you, they're giving you an easy way to find out where you're going. So if you wanted to go 300 miles, you're not going to be able to see that visually on a map in a small area. You're going to have to use miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles of paper. But instead, we use something called scale, which in our definitions we wrote down that scale is the relationship between the actual size of a place and its size on the map, shown on a map. So for every 1 inch, we went 50 feet from Los Primeros to McDonald's, and we were able to discover that it's a total of 84 inches, which is approximately 4,200 feet from here to McDonald's.